So the first talk is by Kobayashi Manato. It's about the strangeness of PHP from a front-end engineer's perspective. Please give an applause. お願いします。面白かった。
Hi everyone. So, this is my first time presenting in English. So I'll do my best. Today I'll be talking about the uniqueness of PHP from JavaScript. Let's get started. Okay, here's the plan. First sync versus async, PHP versus JavaScript. Then, uh, how PHP really works. That's the PHP worker, and we check out the limits. And finally, the cool new stuff non-blocking PHPs. Yeah. So I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Manato Kobayashi, and new graduate engineer at Beenos Inc. And I love traveling and yeah, enjoying a few drinks. Tech-wise, I'm into low level, the stack operating system, databases, and of course Laravel. And I'm doing LT-driven development. So I have a quick question for you all. What was the first language, programming language you learned? Probably a lot of C, Java, and PHP, right? If there's any COBOL developers, I respect it. As homies, I came from a front-end background, so JavaScript was my first language. So I didn't actually touch PHP until I started working. And when I first saw it, I got fused with culture shock. I felt something wrong, like why the dollar sign on the every variables and variable everything global, and uh, you can just redirect the stuff everywhere. And this thing that really consumed me and frustrated me. But the biggest shock that in PHP, everything is synchronous by default. Other other concrete examples. Let's compare an API that fetches the users. First in JavaScript and then in PHP. In JavaScript, if you forget the await keywords, the code just keeps running. So you send the response before the user data arrives, and the response will be empty. This this is really common pattern in JavaScript. Okay, so now let's look at the PHP examples. And wait, where the await keywords? There isn't one. This is because PHP is accessing the database asynchronously. Exactly. So that means PHP block as a request while it's processing the current one. So which one is actually easier to understand? Honestly, in my opinion, I actually feel PHP is easier. Why? Because synchronous and stateless code is just so much easier to follow and way easier to debug. I have been feeling that async code is really difficult. And this white ideas is all based on the shared, shared, shared nothing architectures. But what's the problem with the synchronous model? The problem is blocking IOs. When the process is waiting for the network or the databases or the file system. is just stop all other requests and process. So this sounds terrible for PHP, right? If it is broken, how the PHP handle multiple requests in practice? The answer is we use the PHP FPM model. I bet this looks very familiar to all the PHP devs here. In modern PHP apps, the method is pretty simple. A server like Nginx takes the first request and just processes the job to the PHP FPM. FPM is a process manager that keeps the pool of many PHP worker process. So request A goes to worker 1, request B goes to worker 2, and request 3 goes to worker 3. They block individually. But the system handle many requests concurrently. This is just my personal opinion, but I think the setup is good enough for most cloud apps. As I explained, is a multi-process model, so it can handle multiple requests concurrently. And in addition to that, this config is easier to scale out. To scale, you just add more worker or add more PHP FPM servers. But the PHP FPM model has its limitations. It has a really hard time with WebSockets, push notifications, real-time games, and chat service. Why? Because those systems need to maintain persistent stateful connections, and then demand super low latency at the real-time games. This is about much for PHP experiments, shared nothing architectures, and in the overhead of starting a process and bootstrapping the entire framework for every single request. So what if we want to build these stateful or high performance applications in PHP? Well, today we now have groundbreaking I/O in modern PHPs, just like Node.js. We have amazing tools like Sword and React PHPs. These run PHP in totally different ways as a long-running, asynchronous, event-driven process. So let's conclusions. First, PHP is synchronous by default, which makes it simple and easy to understand. Second, for most cloud apps, the PHP FPM model is fine. It uses a multi-process model to handle concurrency. And finally, PHP is no longer just synchronous. With new tools like Sword and React PHP, we can now build true non-blocking applications. Yeah, that's all. Thank you for listening.